So our practice today is about a concept in yoga called creep. So I picked it because we're in Halloween week this week, and I love being creative with my fall themes. But creep is a technical term that we use in yoga that refers to the lengthening of the tissues. So the best way to kind of give an example is if we're trying to get something out of our bottle, like a bottle of conditioner for our hair, and we turn it upside down so that all of the leftover conditioner can come to the bottom. So that's kind of what our tissues do. So it's not something that happens instantaneously. So when we flip that bottle over, it doesn't happen right away. We have to wait till the next day, and then all of that leftover conditioner is at the bottom. So it's the same thing with our tissues. It takes time to lengthen our tissues. And it's something that happens more with passive practices. So for example, if we're holding a warrior pose, that's not really going to create so much of this sensation that we call creep. It's more about when we're more in a passive hold. So it's a lot more poses that we're on the ground, things that we can sustain and hold for a longer period of time, where we're not using as much muscle engagement. Because creep has more to do with our connective tissue rather than the muscles themselves. So if you take like a piece of chicken, that white stringy stuff is more the fascia, the connective tissue, and that has sort of a stretch to it, but the actual breast tissue itself doesn't really stretch. So it's the same thing with our muscles. The fascia that's penetrating the muscles is really what's lengthening and stretching. So we need time. So we'll be holding some of these poses a little bit longer. And we also need to put a stress on the tissue. And that might mean the weight of our body. So if we're like in a pose like this, the weight of my body is causing a load on the tissue. And so that hamstring is getting stressed as I come forward. And stress is, in this case, a good thing. We talk about stressing the tissues because stress helps the tissues get stronger. Once we come out, like if we've been holding this pose for a minute or two, the hamstring is lengthening. Maybe our back muscles are lengthening. When we come out, there's a little bit of more fragility and even a little bit of weakness in the tissue because we've just stretched it out. So if we think about a rubber band that we stretched out, we held for a long period of time, it's not as strong because we've lengthened it. Now, over time, you go about the rest of your day, that tissue starts to recover, it starts to come back to where it was, but now it's stronger. So our bodies are creating that strength through the process of lengthening it and allowing it to recover. So it's a good thing to not, stress the tissues like that on a constant basis. We wouldn't want to constantly be stretching our hamstrings. So that's why it's good to do different things, a variety of things. So we are going to come onto our backs and we're going to work with creep today in our bodies. So please have your strap nearby. We're going to be using that. And first couple of moments, let's just take some time to settle in. All right. So as you come onto your back, just let the body relax and start to focus on a nice, soft belly breath. And know that as we're holding these postures, eventually, as we get into some more challenging postures that we're holding, sometimes there can be a little intensity. Maybe even we get flush, we get heat when we stretch the tissues. The breath is an important factor in that. So the more we can stay calm and soft in our breathing, the more likely the tissues are to lengthen and to have that creep. However, if we're straining our breath, we're huffing and we're puffing as we're trying to stretch, we're exerting too much, the tissues are going to actually tighten up more, chances are. So we have to stay soft and calm in our breathing if we want to allow that safe elongation of the tissues. Of course, if we put too much load and we hold it for too long, we can have the opposite effect and we can damage the tissue. So 3 more breaths here. And I want you to just stay really mindful as we do these practices today to not overdo it. All right, so let's go ahead and bring the right knee into the chest. And just go ahead and hold it there for a few breaths. Notice your left leg. If it feels uncomfortable at all here, you can bend that knee, which will be a little bit more gentle on your lower back. However, if you can keep that leg straight. And just pause there and have a few breaths. Maybe noticing any sensations as you're bringing that leg in. It's very mild, but sometimes there's a bit of a stretch in the back of the glute or the hamstring here. Let's just take one more breath there. And then from here, we're going to grab the strap and we'll extend that leg up towards straight. Of course, I've got these floppy pants on today. Okay, so holding on with the 2 ends of your strap, leg is up straight, and we're going to hold here for a little bit of time. Make sure that you have a little flex to the foot, you're spreading out through your toes, and just see if you can hold that for a few breaths and be aware of the back of the leg. So we're elongating the tissue on the back of the leg from the hamstring, through the back of the knee, the back of your calf, and even to some extent, the plantar fascia here is getting a little bit of a stretch as well. Now, if it would feel good and it would be not too much strain, we're going to go ahead and bend the elbows toward the side and allow that leg to come a little bit closer to the chest. And you might need to have a bend in your knee here, and that's perfectly fine. So depending on the limitation of the back chain of fascia, we might need to keep that knee bent in order to have the leg overhead. And you'll notice as you bend the elbows to the side and you start to bring that leg a little closer, we're getting more sensation in the back of that leg. Use your breath, nice soft belly breath. And as you continue to hold, as the tissue starts to creep, we might be able to keep drawing that leg a little bit closer. But remember, we're not forcing anything. We're staying with a nice soft breath. So try not to get aggressive with these kinds of longer holds. We want to really stay soft, be kind to your body. Nice slow breath. Last 2 breath cycles here. Maybe you're going to bring it in a little bit more. Okay, and then we've done this before. We're going to take that strap into the right hand. You could hold up close to your foot if you can. And then keeping the left side of the body grounded, we're going to start to open that right leg out to the side. And now that creep is happening more on the inseam of the leg. And we're going to hold it again for a little longer than we usually do. Now, you might find like you're more like halfway, you're not all the way out to the side. That might be where you pause. And as you hold it, you might be able to allow that leg to drop open a little bit more, just to your capacity. Feel like you're kind of reaching through the inner leg, reaching through the heel, staying with those soft breaths. So it's a very different effect in the body when we do things like a flow and we're moving continuously. We are getting some stretch to the tissue, but it's not going to be as much as it is when we're doing a longer hold. Last 2 breaths here. Good, now we're going to stay in the same position. Turn your toes down toward the ground and turn your heel up a little bit. And that's going to change that sensation a bit. And we're going to stay for 3 more breaths with the toes turning down, heel turning up. So there's a little bit of effort in the arm, but otherwise it's more of a passive stretch here. Okay, on your next inhalation, let's go ahead and come back up through center. And we're going to switch over and bring the strap into the left hand. Bring your right hand, thumb, into your hip crease on that right side and gently guide your leg a little more forward so you feel a little heavier towards your tailbone area. Keep that foot gently flexed. And now we're going to bring that leg over to the left just part way. And we're going to keep the right hip on the ground. And now we're stretching the outside seam of the leg, the lateral sheath of fascia. For this first part, we're keeping that right hip on the ground. We're not letting it come off the ground. Now, if you want to get a little more sensation, dip your foot a little bit toward the left, and that'll give you a little bit of sensation in through the ankle and in through the side of your shin. If that feels uncomfortable, then keep your foot more in a neutral position. So here we're getting into the side of the ankle, the side of the calf, the knee, the IT band, and the outer hip. Now next phase, we're going to roll all the way over onto that left hip, and we're going to come into a deeper twist. The right arm could either be out to a T, or you could keep it at your hip, rolling that right hip a little more forward. And if you can, let the left arm come all the way to the ground so that it's more passive. Now, to get a little more out of this, resist your right hip back toward the right a bit to create more length through that tissue. So you want to think about elongation. If possible, keep your right shoulder down, your right arm on the ground, unless you have your hand on your hip. If you have your hand on your hip, nice little thing to try is sort of pull the flesh of the hip toward the right as you reach through your left leg a little bit. One more breath there. And then we're going to slowly release, come back up to the start. And then let's go ahead and let that leg go. And I want you to just let the right leg come down and just notice maybe any difference between your right side and your left side before we complete side 2. So in a practice like this, we're not going to do as many poses because we're going to hold them longer, but we're going to get a different effect. And for me, I really love this kind of effect in my body of this longer hold. It's very calming to the nervous system as well. And now let's go ahead and bring that left knee into the chest, and we'll just start there for just a mild stretch, maybe through the back of the glute, the sit bone area. Let's take a couple moments there before we extend that leg up. Okay, go ahead, take your strap around that left foot and extend the leg up towards straight. And just hold as close as you can towards your foot, but let the shoulders stay relaxed. Okay, so just staying here for a nice long hold, starting to stretch that hamstring. Keep that left hip heavy to the ground, but do spread out through your toes, open up the sole of the foot. Remember here, you can always keep that right knee bent if that feels better. But if you can straighten that leg out. And keep holding it there for another moment. You might try pushing your foot up into the strap. And notice what that does. That gives us a little more length to push that foot up. Last couple moments, stay with that soft breath. All right, from here, strap comes into your left hand, hold up high towards your foot, and we're gonna start to open that leg out to the side, out to the left. Keep the right side of the body grounded. And you might go about part way at first. And if you feel like your body comes to a natural stopping point, you're not gonna force it. And if you can, you'll let that leg open up a little more. So we'll hold it there for a few breaths before we turn the toes down. So stay a little more neutral. Stay grounded through the right rib cage, right shoulder, right hip. And think about reaching out through that leg, through the inseam of the leg. So you're elongating through the inner thigh. Okay, from here, let's turn those toes down, turn the heel up, and notice how that changes things a little bit. And we'll hold for 3 more breaths. Again, if that's too much, you can always stay neutral. Don't feel like you've got to do everything if it's too much. After your 3rd breath, we're going to come all the way back up and then switch. So bring that strap into your right hand, and then left hand can hook into the hip crease and just kind of draw that left hip a little forward. So you want to feel heavier through your sit bone and your tailbone. And then we're just going to go part way. So take that leg just part way over to the right and keep the left hip on the ground initially. If you want a little more sensation, kind of tip the foot to the right so we get a little more stretch through the side of the left side of the ankle. Really interesting to observe your body and notice where you feel sensation the most. Is it more in your ankle? Is it more in your IT band or your hip? Maybe all of the above. And then we're gonna let that leg come all the way over. So start to roll on to the right hip and see if you can get that right arm all the way to the ground. And then pause there, and you can either keep your hand in your hip crease or out to the side. I like to just roll that hip a little forward and then feel like you're pulling the tissue a little bit to the left as you reach the leg to the right. So you're pulling the tissue of your hip and your hip crease toward the left as you reach out through your foot. And then after you feel like you've done that, maybe let that arm relax more. Last 2 breaths. And then after that 2nd breath, go ahead and come all the way back up through the center. Good, and then we'll release and bring that knee back into the chest. And then let's take a full body stretch. And bring both of the knees in. Let's go ahead and roll over onto the side and come on up into a seated posture. And you might want to sit up onto a pillow or a folded blanket. We're going to come into a cross-leg position. As you come into the cross-leg position, widen your sit bones apart and slightly to the back, because that'll help us come into a forward fold, which is what we're going to do next. Okay, so let's bring the hands in front of us. And then think about kind of sticking your sit bones, your tailbone back behind you. So you take a little pelvic tilt. And then if it's available to you, walk it out a little bit more. So wherever the natural stopping point is, so a good thing to keep in mind is that we don't want to go into a stretch and go full force into the deepest possible version of the pose, because it's like a shock to our tissues. So we've got to ease ourselves into these positions slowly using our breath, and then that softness starts to happen, that creep starts to happen. And as the body invites us to, we could go a little farther. But that's not about forcing it. It's not being aggressive. It's being invited to go a little deeper. So if you get the invitation, walk the hands out. If you don't, stay where you are. And then coming to that nice, soft belly breath. And imagine you could send the breath wherever you feel that restriction in the tissue. So maybe into your hips or your lower back. We've got 2 more cycles here. After that second breath, let's go ahead and slowly walk ourselves up. Take your time. Pause when you get to the top. You guys are doing a great job taking your time. And then we're going to just switch the legs and do that one more time. So opposite leg comes in the front. Make sure you pull your sit bones back and slightly apart, which allows more of a tipping of the pelvis forward. And then just come first really mild, stay really close up and tip your sit bones back. From there, you might be able to walk it out a little bit more, coming to that first natural stopping place where the body's like, okay, that's good. Don't go any farther. And then stay and breathe. Sending that breath into the areas where you feel the most restriction. Know that if you start to get any sharp pains, stabbing sensations, pins and needles, better to back yourself out than to come to a place where you feel like you're suffering. So stay where it is the most sustainable. And if you get that invitation, you might be able to walk it out a little bit more. Last 2 breaths. We're going to get up and move for a little bit with some sun salutations, and then we're going to finish up the end of practice with more of these longer holds. Go ahead and slowly come up. Also very meditative to just focus on your breath and stay in a pose, very calming. Pause when you get to the top. Give yourself a moment to adjust. Good, and then let's go ahead and make our way into tabletop pose when you are ready. So feel free to grab a blanket, put that under your knees. And let's go ahead and just go through some of our cat-cows here. Hands under shoulders, knees under hips, and do a few rounds. And let's just stay with a nice mindful movement, a nice slow, soft breath. So even though we're taking a little bit more what we call the yang activity, we're more active, we're staying with a softer kind of approach. 3 more cycles. After that 3rd cycle, go ahead, take a brief child's pose, move your hips back. Arms could go forward or stack under your forehead. And you can always pull in a block if you feel like you need one under your head. Let's take 3 more breaths in your child's pose. After your 3rd breath, let's go ahead and very slowly come back up into tabletop pose. And we're going to come up to downward facing dog. So if you have a blanket, you could take that out of the way. Your hands come slightly forward of your shoulders. Turn the fingers out a hair and then lift your hips up and back. And take a moment, maybe move it around, pedal it out, shake out your head. Just warming up your dog a bit. And then on your next inhale, let's go ahead, come forward into a plank pose, drop down onto your knees, and we're gonna slowly lower down to the belly. Reach back through your feet, through your legs, inhale, cobra pose. And exhale, we'll come through all fours if you like, or right back to your down dog, your choice. Now we're gonna take a longer hold in downward facing dog. Bend your right knee and let your left heel drop to the ground. And feel that stretch in the back of the heel, the Achilles, the back of your calf. If this is too much, you can drop to your knees and push back through your heel, but it's not going to be as deep of a stretch, but you'll still get the same effect. One more breath there. I don't want to hold you too long. And then drop your knees down to the ground. Good. Inhale, reach your arms up. I just want to give those arms a little break. Stretch your arms overhead, interlace your palms, press your palms up. And then right back into it, release your hands down, slightly forward of your shoulders, downward facing dog. Bend your left knee, send your right heel to the ground. If you can, get a little lighter on your toes. And feel like you're stretching the sole of your foot back. Your heel reaches back. Push through your arms. Push through your foot. One more breath. Good. And then knees down to the ground. Inhale, reach those arms up. Interlace your palms. Press your palms up. Good, and then release, hands down, back to our downward facing dog. Okay, step those feet apart a little wider, bend your knees, and walk your hands back towards your feet. Come into a forward fold. Keep those knees bent a little bit. Inhale, halfway lift, hands up on your thighs. Exhale, fold forward. Two more like that. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold forward. One more time. And then next inhale, let's reach those arms all the way out and up. And exhale, release the arms down at your side. Okay, we'll flow through a few half and full sun salutations, and then we'll come back to some holds. So inhale, reach the arms overhead. Exhale, fold forward, slight bend in those knees. Inhale, hands on thighs, come up halfway. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, rise up. Exhale, hands to your heart or at your side, your choice. Let's do two more like this. Inhale, reach. Exhale, fold. Inhale, lift. Exhale, folding forward. Inhale, reach up. Exhale to your heart or at your side. One more time on your own. Go ahead, reach. Inhale. Exhale and fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, release. Inhale, reach those arms up. Exhale, hands to heart. Okay, let's go ahead and take full sun sal. Be at the top of your mat. Inhale, arms reach. Exhale, folding forward. Inhale to your halfway lift. Keep your chest reaching forward. Plant your hands, step back, plank pose. And here you can drop those knees if you like. Chest keeps reaching forward. Dip your tailbone down, tone your belly. And then slowly lower all the way down. Inhale through your cobra. Exhale, down dog. You can pass through fours if you like. Tabletop, or right to your dog. Okay, take an inhale here. And as you exhale, go ahead and walk your feet to the top of the mat. If you need to, you can also walk hands to feet. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, reach all the way up. Exhale, hands to your heart. Let's do one more round like this. Inhale, reach. Exhale, fold. Inhale, halfway. And plant your hands, step back. Okay, drop those knees if you like, heart forward, slowly lower. Using that upper body strength. Inhale, cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. Okay, nice inhale here. As you exhale, walking it forward, top of the mat. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold. Inhale, reach up. Exhale, hands to your heart. Okay, so we're gonna move through a longer hold in our forward fold now. So a couple things that are helpful: keep those feet a little bit wider so they're not on a narrow tightrope. We're gonna make sure we have a bend in the knees. So inhale, reach the arms up. And exhale, fold forward. Now, as you come down, you can hold, let's hold opposite elbows today because it gives us somewhere to go. It gives us more space for the creep. If we hold on to the feet, there's nowhere for the torso to go as easily. Keeping those knees a little bent. See if you can think about pressing through your feet, engaging the legs, so the front of the legs, the quadriceps. Lift your kneecaps up. So engaging the quads, which will help the hamstring release a little bit more. And as you press through the feet and engage the legs, can you tip your sit bones up a little higher? Okay, change the crossing of your arms. Stay with it. Keep charging up the legs. And then think about extending through your heart and your head and your elbows a little bit more. Use your breath and just feel and sense into the backs of those legs, putting a load on the hamstrings with that upper body. Last breath. Now to come out, we can either roll up or press up. So you can bring hands to hips or let the arms dangle, but use the legs pressing the ground away. So we use less of those back muscles, and do take a pause when you get to the top. You've been there a while, so I'm going to give the head a little bit of a chance to adjust. Very good. Okay, let's make our way back down to the ground. We did a lot of lower body. We're going to do a little bit of upper body today for the creep. So we're going to inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, fold. Inhale to your halfway lift. And then we're going to step back to our plank and lower down to the belly. Okay, so from here, we're going to try a little bit of creep for the front of the chest. So we're going to come down and just stack up your hands for a moment. Rest your forehead down. Take a breath or two into the belly, lower back. Okay, from here, bring your right arm into a goalpost position. So your elbow lines up with your shoulder. You might want to watch for a moment. So I'm going to bring my left hand in under my shoulder, and I'm going to bring this right arm out to the side a little bit and start to roll toward my right hip, and maybe step the top foot behind me. It's a big stretch for the pectoral muscles and the chest. Some of you might wish to have something under your head. So if you feel like you need something under your head, grab a blanket and place it underneath your head. So I'm going to do it the other way so I don't have my back to you guys. See how you're doing there. That's it. So this is pretty deep. So if it's too much, don't take that top leg back behind you. Keep it either stacked or maybe slightly in front. And then we're going to see if we can breathe through it and hold it a little bit longer. So you're in control how far you go into this pose. Remember, be kind to your body. If it feels good and you have the invitation to, you might be able to roll open a little bit more. Maybe the top arm could even reach behind you like we do for thread the needle, but that's going to increase the load on the chest tissue. So only going there if it feels right for you. Remember, if you need to come out, that's always an option. Otherwise, let's hold 2 or 3 more breaths. You guys are doing great with this one. Go ahead and slowly, slowly release. And just go ahead and pause in the center before we come to the other side. So I always want to come out of the posture just as kind of gingerly as we go into it. We don't want to rush it. Again, the faster we move, it could shock the tissue. If we go into it too quickly, if we go out of it too quickly. So do take your time. Okay, when you're ready, put that left arm into the goalpost position. Bring your right hand by your shoulder and start to roll towards your left hip. And you can keep that leg in front, like a little bit of a bend. That's already a big stretch. Or the foot can start to come behind you. And that's going to deepen that stretch. Breathe through it. I just did a whole bunch of weights the other day. I did like chest presses. So I'm really feeling it because it's tight from all the weightlifting. So if you do any resistance work or weight training, it's good to stretch those tissues back out because they shorten. When they get stronger, when we're weightlifting, it's tightening and strengthening. So we also need to release. Now, if you want, wrap that top arm around your back. If it's too much, then keep the hand down. And it might be different from one side to the other, so just be aware. Last 2 breaths. And then after that second breath, go ahead and slowly release and come back to the center. Stack up your palms, rest your forehead. All right, go ahead, slide your hands back underneath your chest, press yourself up, and let's go back to another child's pose. Okay, grab your set of blocks. Put the blocks short end to short end, flat in front of you. And then take a blanket and we're going to fold it up so it's about the same size as the blocks and put it right on top of the blocks. We're going to do one more for the upper body, and then we're going to finish with one more seated pose, and we'll do our restorative twist. So this is called puppy. Most of you have done it before, but maybe not exactly the same way. And it stretches, the creep is more into the kind of outer shoulder area. So we're going to put the elbows up onto the blanket and then put your head onto the blanket. Walk the elbows a little forward and then walk your knees back a little bit. And you're already maybe feeling a lot in those shoulders. You might let your palms drop behind the back of your head and let your chest drop a little bit. If it's pretty mild, walk your elbows a little bit more to the edge and let your head come inside the block toward the floor, and that'll give you a deeper stretch. So don't force it, only if that feels right. And we'll take a couple breaths there. And we'll take 3 more breath cycles if you can. Always listen to your body. This is a deep one, so if it's too much, you can always modify. You could just do a child's pose as well. 1 more breath. And then to come out, very carefully start to release your palms, press into the elbows, walk the knees back in, and then we're going to come into a seated posture once again. So perhaps sitting up on your blanket or pillow again, and we're going to come back to the cross-leg position that we started in. This time we're going to do a little bit more of a lateral stretch that gets into the side of the hip, the lower back, the rib cage area. So we're going to turn toward your right knee. That's it. And then start to walk your hands out so that they come in front of the knee, and pause. And as you pause, you're going to notice that sensation on the left side. See if you can let your left sit bone get heavier to the ground. Let your chin come in. Find your breath. Soft belly breath. If there's an invitation to go deeper, walk your hands out a little bit more. But keep dropping through your left sit bone. Maybe your head gets heavier, maybe your arms get heavier, and your torso gets closer and closer towards your thigh. Imagine sending the breath into that whole left side. Now for a moment, push your hands forward. Let that sit bone get even heavier. And then once again, relax into it, soften. Last 2 breaths. After your second breath, we're going to very slowly, very slowly walk your hands in. Use your hands to press yourself up so you're not yanking on those back muscles. And then we're going to just pause in the center for a moment. Let those tissues kind of recover a little bit. Okay, let's switch our legs, and we're going to do that on the other side. Widen out those sit bones. Turn towards your left leg side, and again, start to come into the side bend forward fold, and pause. And then when you come to that first stopping point, let that right sit bone drop heavier into the ground. And as you work with a soft breath, you might have that invitation to go a little deeper. Let your head get heavy, arms start to drop, and breathe. Now you can always kind of brace yourself. If you're feeling too much sensation, you could prop yourself up a bit so that there's less load on those lower back muscles. If it feels good, be a little more passive. The face soften, jaw soften. And then from here, go ahead and push your hand slightly forward and get that right sit bone a little heavier, and then go ahead and release again. So you've just gotten a little deeper. And then very carefully using your hands, pressing those hands into the ground, Walk yourself to center, take your time. And then just sit for a moment upright, take a couple of breaths. So the barometer is going to be, how do we feel the next day? If we're really kind of sore and cranky in some of these areas, we might have overdone things. So just kind of pay attention to that tomorrow. All right, so let's grab our bolster. Put that in front of you. And then have your folded blanket off to the right side. And I'm going to keep it folded in that long position, just like it was for a puppy pose. And we're going to do our restorative twist here. Okay, so have your left hip right in the center of the bolster. And I like to take that blanket between the knees, the shins, and the ankle bones so they're not kind of grinding into each other. And then I'm going to turn toward the bolster. Start to walk my hands out and lay the torso down. I want to get the torso turning toward the bolster as much as you can. You might even use your hand to pull that tissue out of the way. And then your head is going to turn in the direction of your knees. If you want, you could even stick a block under the bolster and you could hug the bolster with your hands. Or you could let your arms drape alongside. Now this is a milder sensation, but I wanted to end with something not so intense so that we can start to relax a bit. But a twist is going to give a little bit of stress to the tissue around the spine. So see if you can send your breath into anywhere where you might be feeling some restriction in the tissue. And we're going to hold for about 3 minutes on each side. So really let yourself drop in, soften. If you were going to do this at home and you didn't have a bolster, you could also use 2 stacked up pillows. I'm just mentioning that because I know some people are doing the recordings later. So you can use 2 bed pillows instead of the bolster if you need to. And then having a sense of really surrendering into the support of the prop. So let go of effort. The more we let go of effort, the deeper that creep goes into the tissues. If we are efforting, we're using the muscle strength. If we are relaxing, the nervous system connection with the fascia is going to help it start to soften even more. And in a restorative posture, the effects are not only in the area we're stressing, but it's like a whole body synergistic kind of releasing of the fascia because we're just letting go of the effort and there's less intensity. Last minute here, stay with it. Okay, that was your 3 minutes. So remember to come out, we're going to go really slowly. Use your hands to start to slide them under your shoulders and press up. Take your time. And then when you're ready, go ahead and just swap out and go over onto your other side. So I'm going to stay facing the camera. So now right hip is going to be in the center of the bolster, knees off to the side. And go ahead and place that blanket underneath, in between rather, your knees, your ankles, your feet. So there's a little cushioning. And then we're going to turn the torso to face the bolster as much as you can. It's almost like you want to line up your spine with the center of the bolster and then start to bring yourself down. Your head's going to turn in the same direction as your legs, a little more gentle on the neck. And you might hug the bolster or let your hands be at your side. And then we'll hold for 3 minutes. We're going to end just a few minutes late today, guys, because I want to make sure you get your 3 minutes here and then a nice shavasana. So stay with it for 3 minutes and have that sense of just letting go. Let the props hold you. Surrender into gravity. With every exhale, you might feel yourself dropping a little more. About another minute and a half, you're halfway there. Last minute, sending your breath wherever you feel that restriction. Okay, guys, slowly starting to come out by sliding your hands back. Try not to pop up. Take your time. And when you get to the top, just have a brief pause. And then turn that bolster so it could be under your knees. Put your blanket down for under your head. And before we come into Shavasana, let's just do a knee hug. Both knees into the chest. You can take a couple breaths there, letting your back muscles just melt into the ground. And as you breathe, take an inhale, feel the expansion of the back body into the ground. And you might take this into a happy baby if you like, or stay with the knee hug. You might bring those feet up. You can hold ankles or feet or behind your knees. And then let's just hold our happy baby for a few breaths. Let the tailbone get heavy toward the ground so that you're not rounding your back so much. If you feel like your back is really rounding here, I'd rather have you hold your ankles or your legs than the feet. So not to kind of round those vertebrae into the ground. Let the knees go wide. Let the knees drop down. Get heavy with the knees. Spread out through your toes and just breathe here into the lower belly. Remember, you can also stay with a knee hug if that's more comfortable. So the creep happens even if we don't change anything. If we don't increase the load, we're still going to have that creep because of the time. And the time we spend in a pose is going to cause those tissues to lengthen. Okay, let's release happy baby. Bring those knees back in. And then let's go ahead, find Shavasana. Drape your legs over the bolster. If you are cold, make sure you cover up because the tissues are going to be more relaxed when we're warm. This is why we feel more contracted as the weather gets colder. So make sure you're warm enough and we'll come to rest on your back. And return to a nice soft belly breath. With every exhale, settle into the ground a little more. Allow the breath to get softer, more subtle, and more internal, so that maybe the people around you can't hear your breath, so it's really soft and quiet. And then stay where you are for a couple more minutes. And just keep imagining that the breath and gravity, the ground, helping those tissues continue to soften. All right, everyone. So before you start to move, just take a moment and notice how you feel. Maybe notice what came up for you today. So it's often said that we hold our issues in our tissues. So when we hold poses and we release the tension, sometimes that kind of held emotion can come up. So just observing what came up for you today, how you feel at the end of the practice. And then let the breath get a little deeper when you're ready, and start to invite in small movements at first. Maybe letting that evolve into a stretch or a knee hug or some little rock side to side. And when you're ready to, go ahead and come over to rest and pause on one side. No hurry. When you're ready to, using the strength of your arms, go ahead and press yourself up. We'll come back to that nice seated posture of your choosing. And just let your hands rest down for a moment. Sit up tall. Stay with your soft, subtle, quiet breath. The eyes be relaxed. Just take a couple more moments to sit. And I'll share a final reading with you guys. This is from Dana Folds, who writes yoga poems. This is from her book of yoga poems. This is called The Posture of Divinity. I reach inside the stretch to remember again the infinite being that is beyond individual identity, the ageless, wise, and joyful one, awareness released from expectation or the need to understand. I find the alignment of soul and breath, the perfect line of consciousness. In the center of my movement, nothing is left of me but what is true and intimate, the posture of divinity. I find that when we come to our mat, we move our bodies and we move out of all this kind of tension and held emotion in our bodies, we can be more fully who we are rather than be in that state of tension and pain and suffering. Let's go ahead, bring our hands together now in front of the heart space. Have a nice inhalation, allow the heart to lift, and exhale, bow your head down. Thank you so much, everyone. Namaste. All right, everyone, feel free to unmute if you have any questions, comments. Let me know how you did with the creep today. How was our connection? Did we sound okay? Did we lose any, lose it at all?
Every now and then you got a little garble, but not.
Not too bad.
Not too bad. Like the mic was, like when you have a mic and the one wire is loose.
Yeah, I think there's something wrong. I think I need to get new earbuds because it seems to be happening. So, all right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next week. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question, Deanna.
Yeah.
Someone said that they would like, if we could, to do the winter wellness class on Zoom in the classroom here. Would that work?
With Eileen?
Yes.
Yeah, I would love to. Sure. Let me talk to Eileen. I'm going to actually see her today. I'm going over her polarity. So I'll talk to her and we'll try to set something up. That would be great.
Okay.
Do you think there's some people interested in that?
Well, I have one person that signed up so far, but I just put the paper on the counter yesterday, so yeah.
Okay. Well, do you know that the one we're doing at Baransu, you can live stream it, but you want to have everyone there in the classroom? Is that what you want?
Yeah, the person who I was talking to felt she wanted it, and she thought it would be nicer to be in the classroom. That's what she
Okay.
thought.
Yeah. Okay. So if it's only a few of you, like two or like maybe two, it might not be worth it for Eileen to do a whole separate session. But what you could do, it's not this Sunday, but next Sunday, you could do the live stream from Baransu, the yoga studio right there. But if you want to, are you thinking we want to do a separate session at a different time? Is that what you're thinking?
No, I was thinking that time, I was wondering if it could be brought in here from the studio where you're doing it.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So here's what we'd have to do then. So you guys would each individually have to sign up through the studio. And then one of you there would have to set up the iPad. So the link, once you sign up for the class, each of you would have to sign up. But once you sign up for the class, everybody will get the link. So just one of you though will have to come in and set it up. So we could do that.
Okay.
if there's enough interest, we could have a separate class, but it's like to pay 2 of us, we need, like 10 people. So I don't know if that would be.
Let Mary Jane talk, because I could, if you're going to do it in this classroom, I could put it on the website.
Okay.
Individual emails you've been sending.
Okay,
Which might get a broader audience.
okay.
And then you could see if you have enough that it makes it worthwhile to do it with the group in here.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
But
But we can talk about it.
yeah, I don't know if I understand. Okay. But that's okay.
Why don't I send you the flyer that I posted, and why don't you see if there's enough interest to do a separate thing, because then you guys don't have to sign up for the studio. You guys just could all, pay us directly. But if there's only a few people, then we'll get you hooked in through Baransu. But we only have 2 weeks, so we got to get it going. Because if you want to come next Sunday, we got to make sure everyone knows how to sign up. Do you know what I mean? Am I confusing you?
Tracy's not understanding.
So if you guys are going to come to the one next Sunday, then you have to sign up through the yoga studio. But if you want us to do a separate,
You're talking about next Sunday, the 7th of November, you're talking about?
yeah.
I already have a flyer on the bulletin board here for that.
Oh, you do. You have it. Okay, good.
I need to give me a flyer, because I,
Okay.
explained that there were some people interested in doing it in here. She said, yeah, but they would have to register through the
Yeah.
line on the bottom of the flyer.
Yeah. Yep. And if you want, I can send you the link if it's easier that you can send out to everybody by email. Would you want me to do that? Would that be helpful?
Send me the information. I think I could, if it's going to be held, I need to check a few things now that I'm thinking about it.
Okay, I'll send you all the information, and you can send it to your group of people. And as long as someone's willing to come set up the iPad, I see no problem with that.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. All right, very good.
All right. That'll be great.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you. See you next time. I think we're going to be on Zoom Friday, anyone who's doing yoga through the library, because it looks cold and rainy on Friday. Okay.
Bye.
Signing off. See you guys.
Bye-bye. I saw it on my head.
Bye-bye.